Howdy, this is Gus. Today we're installing some deck planks. I've got Trex PVC Composite Decking. The reason we went with Trex is that my wife found a color she liked and it only came in Trex. So that's why we're using Trex. I then did some research trying to figure out what would be the best fasteners. After doing my research, I came across this these screws and this tool here. This is called a Camo Marksman's Pro, and it basically latches on to your 5.5 inch plank. When you let it go, it holds it, and then it makes a perfect 3/16 inch gap between each board. You then take the screws and load them in each side, and they go in at a 45-degree angle into the sides of the boards, so you don't see them from up top. You can kind of see them, but they're mostly hidden, and I'm guessing that's why they call it camo. So far I'm liking it. It comes with a couple extra bits. Over time I imagine they're going to wear out just because of the way it's drilling in, and then it's hitting this stop and it keeps drilling until it can't drill anymore, so it's probably kind of nicking the edge here on the bit every time, slowly wearing it out. But for now it's they're holding up. I've already probably put, I don't know, 800 screws in this deck so far and still trucking along. The instructions say that you should line this thing up straight on the studs here that you're drilling into, the rafters, whatever you want to call them. But if you do that, there's a slight bulge from the previous one and your gaps are going to be bigger. So what I've been doing to counteract that is I've just been kind of off center just a little left and right each time, and it seems to be working pretty well. The instructions do tell you that when you drill this thing in, that to do it slowly at first, and not to put a whole lot of weight on this, but just hold it stiff. Basically you want to make sure that these guards are all the way down. Now you know it's flush on the material. The other thing you want to make sure is that everything's level, because if this is way above your rafter, you've got some gap there, you're going to have some wonky things happen. So you want a nice level base to begin with. Alright, so that's level, that's flat. You put a little pressure on, not much, just enough to hold it still. And then, like I say, you go in slowly, and those screws are designed to bite immediately, and they do. And then once it goes in a little ways, you can speed it up. Now, what I've found is if I don't go all the way, I leave a 1/4 inch, and leave that one in place, and then put this one in. Oops, forgot to put in a screw. It holds better. Sometimes it'll do some wonky things, jumping on you. Now when it gets to the end and you hit that stop, it's going to keep screwing that screw in and until it no longer engages with the bit, and you'll hear kind of a little thump. Or maybe you don't. Anyway, let's see if we hear it on this side. So I finish it up over here. There it goes. You hear it thump, and then it kind of comes loose in your hand. So you can kind of clean up some of them little edges. And the other thing you need to really make sure of is that you make sure these stay clean. Every once in a while you get a screw that won't go all the way in, won't go in real easy, and you have to put a little more pressure on it, and it'll start chewing into the material. And these are designed to where it'll spit the material back out and it comes back up in here. And if you just don't clean this and you go to put the next screw in, it'll definitely not go in very well because it's already gummed up. So make sure this is clean every time, and go from there. Okay, one other thing I forgot to mention. I don't remember if it was in the instructions or not, but this is what I found it really useful. Is most of these Trex boards, they're not straight, but they're very pliable. So let's take this one as an example, and you can see it just slowly gets, the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the way you deal with that is you grab one of these and you reverse it so that it's squishing out instead of squeezing in, and every few feet you'll move it as you're going along just to close that gap down and get it to where it's right where you want it. There you go, one more tip. Okay, little trick, little tip here. Alright, so you figure out, basically I've got all the hidden ones back here, and I don't want all this front pretty stuff to have all these boogers, because they're easy to see unless they're kind of buried in a crease. So what I do is I figure out where my joist is, and I take a hammer and a big 16 penny nail, and I make a hole. So I nail back out, and I hammer in one of these little screws just to get it started. And then you slowly, carefully screw this in. Now you want to seat it, I don't know, a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch underneath the surface. And now you're going to have this bulge all the way around. And if you take your hammer and just kind of fold it around, basically the hole it made, it mostly closes it up. And there you go.